Week 4 of the UFL has wrapped up, and with week 5 in the corner on Friday, we got to get these up. We got to talk about week 4 because there's a lot to talk about. Plus, we have some trades that happened as of this week. So we'll start with Louisville winning their first game against Houston 24-22. Cam Gill, 8 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble. Louisville gets their first win of the season, and they will take on the Dallas Renegades on the road. Houston drops to 1-3, and they will host the Columbus Aviators. And let's talk about Louisville, because Louisville made a trade. They're sending Jason Bean to the DC Defenders in exchange for quarterback Mike Dilloniolo as their quarterback. Now, we don't know who's going to be the starter for this week against the Renegades. I'm guessing this is going to be Cam Rogers. Is going to be the quarterback there for Louisville, or maybe it's going to be Mike Dilloniolo, who's going to make his first start as the Louisville Kings starting quarterback. So we'll see. Dallas get a huge first loss of the season. Sorry about that. Columbus. Shout out to the Columbus Aviators for a 28-14 win over the Renegades. Jalen McMillan, 10 out of 15, 126 passing yards, a touchdown. Columbus gets their first win of the season, and they will take on the Houston Gamblers on the road. And I already mentioned Dallas. They already got their first loss of the season, and they will take on the Louisville Kings. And they also made a trade, and this is a surprise. So remember when I talked about Austin Reed and Luis Perez? It could be a competition, and I do think Luis Perez is going to be the starter. Well, after 4 games, and they're 3-1, the Kings, the Renegades have made a big trade. They are sending Luis Perez to the St. Louis Battlehawks in exchange for an offensive tackle, Corey Stewart. This is a surprise because Luis Perez has been the king of spring football. I think this has to do with the way Austin Reed is leading this offense. I think they felt way more confident in Austin Reed as their starting quarterback. After 4 games this season for the UFL, the Renegades trade Luis Perez to the St. Louis Battlehawks. And speaking of St. Louis, they're now in a tough one because they got a Week 1 rematch and lost to DC 22-28. Jordan Tirado, 22 out of 36, 204 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. DC goes to 3-1. They will take on the Birmingham Stallions, which we're going to talk about them a lot. And I already mentioned earlier, they got Jason Beam. Now, Jason Beam is probably going to end up being the backup for Jordan Tirado. So that's not much of, okay, they got Jason Beam, but he's more going to be ending up as a backup. St. Louis, they dropped to 2-2, and they will take on the Orlando Storm on the road. And yes, they got a new quarterback in Luis Perez. So we'll see if Luis Perez does actually get his first start in the 2026 UFL season. We'll see if he becomes the starter. If he does, watch out, Orlando, because the spring football quarterback king is back as a starting quarterback. But now let's talk about Orlando. Boy, what a beat up. They beat up the Stallions 16-0. Jack Plummer, 17 out of 27, 182 passing yards and a touchdown. And Orlando, a team that everyone may doubt Orlando, they're now 4-0. And they are going to host St. Louis, which is big. And they're the only team undefeated left. What a way for the Storm to start their season after 4 games undefeated. Now, let's talk about the negative side of the Stallions. They're 1-3. They will take on the DC Defenders at home, and they made a trade, and this was a blockbuster. The Stallions are trading defensive end Ahmad Bledsoe and quarterback, their starting quarterback, Matt Corral, to the Orlando Storm in exchange for their new starting quarterback, Dorian Thompson Robinson, or DTR. So, what's going on? Well, it doesn't look like this Stallions team is the same. This is not the same team that they were when they've won this competition 4 years in a row. If you remember, they won the United Football League back to back, the UFL, the three-peat, and I believe, if I'm right, they've won again 4 years in a row. If I'm right. If wrong, then sorry about that. But AJ McCarron has to get back on track. There's no way the Stallions are they're 1-3 now. There's no way they can't go 1-4. Because if they end up not making it to the playoffs, which top 4 spots, this is going to be one of the more disappointing seasons in Birmingham Stallions history, to go from a starting quarterback in Matt Corral to now going to a starting quarterback, which is DTR. And DTR, yes, he has some good resume in UCLA. He didn't have much in Cleveland with the Browns. He did have some starting time with the Browns. He was a backup for Jack Plummer. So we'll see how they'll use him. He's a good mobile quarterback. He's a good arm. We'll see what they will do with him against that DC Defenders defense. But it's going to be an interesting, because if they don't make it to the playoffs this year, I will say the most disappointing team right now is the Birmingham Stallions, with the way things are not going well with offensively and their defense. That's it for UFL Week 4 update. If you've not seen my other videos, go check them out on my channel. Of course, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for more sports news.